Do I have to like bleep that part of the interview so they don't know, or just the characters don't?
Yeah, no, actually, I was just thinking about like, oh shit, I'm not just talking to someone. This is actually a thing. So yeah, no, that'd be great.
Talking to a person, who could it be? It's TBD with IRV.
Hey, beautiful beings. Welcome to another episode of TBD with IRV. My name is Isabella Vergun. If you've never seen the show before, welcome. We used to do it live, and now we don't do it live anymore because people's schedules are crazy. Today, we're going to be joined by esteemed Chris Bennett, woodworker, creative mastermind, designer. We're going to talk about all the kind of cool shit that you do. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad.
I mean, thanks for reaching out. It was I hadn't seen the show yet, and it's been a crazy year for me. So a lot of the interactions in social media has really like made a lot of new connections, and this is just like one of those new ones. And feel free to just use Bennett. Nobody calls me by my first name, so.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people don't even actually know I have a first name. But yeah, no, it was really cool, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm stoked. It was such an interesting process too, because I wanted to reach out to people obviously of things that I have interest in and connection to, but also people who are doing things that I have no idea about. And like, I'm a huge D&D person. I love D&D and TTRPGs. I can say it in general. But obviously like woodworking is so out of my like scope of understanding. And it's fucking cool as shit. So let's just start at the beginning. You are when did, and this is kind of a weird question because you do art in several different capacities, and show that creatively. When, for whatever kind of versions of it, did that do you remember when those things started, your interest in that started, but then on top of that, when it became, this is what I want to do for a living?
Sure. This is actually really funny. I love kind of touching on this when people ask me this question, like, like what started you drawing, or what started you doing whatever it is that you do.
Yeah.
And everything that I do right now stems from just me drawing since forever. Like it was just one of those things that I always did. I was really bad at doing homework because I was drawing. I was really bad at grades because I was drawing in class. And it got a lot of good and bad attention. And I grew up in a household that was very religious, which I'm not personally anymore. Nothing wrong with it. It's not for me. And I was drawing a lot of sharp angles and monsters and all this other stuff. So for a little while, some of my family was a little like, should we be worried about this? And my dad, who's always been my biggest fan and greatest mentor, was just like, no, he's a kid. Just let him do his thing. And we need to just be parents so he does his homework. Yeah. And that turned around, all through high school. I'm like, all I want to do is make monsters, draw art, have someone somewhere enjoy my stuff, and that's it. That's all I want to do. It's literally all I want to do. And I actually completely walked away from it for a while. I went into college for computer science and the Air Force.
Oh, wow.
None of that worked out. School was miserable, and I went to my dad, who I tried to go into the military for, to try to make him proud, sort of things. That's where he's from and all that other stuff. And he's like my hero, so I want to be like Dad. And it took a lot. It took me like a week to prepare for this conversation. I went, hey, Dad, I don't want to do what I'm doing. He goes, all right, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to draw. He goes, okay, so what are you going to do? And I'm like, okay, here's my plan. I'm going to go to school to be a teacher and do art stuff, get my advanced schooling paid for, move up from high school into college, and then go from there. And I want to do this and that and the other thing, blah, 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 blah. And I brought all this to him, and he's just sitting there listening to me. And I'm like, so what do you think? And he goes, fuck it, do it. And it's one of those things that you have to know the situation to understand the gravity of just that sentence, because my jaw hit the floor and I almost like passed out, because I thought he was just going to yell at me and be like, this isn't going to, help you live life and all this other stuff. Now, lo and behold, the Batman symbol, we're here now. And it just my creativity and my love for fantasy and drawing has evolved into leather working for Renaissance fairs, in going in full garb and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Creating characters. I recently, within the year, got into D&D.
Oh, wow.
But in that very little experience, and I'm not crazy knowledgeable, but I'm constantly siphoning in information. So now I'm drawing monsters, homebrewing stat blocks and items, and now I'm DMing a table right out in the next room, bi-weekly, and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's evolved. My love for drawing has evolved into all these things: video gaming, tabletop RPGs, the fact that I have my job at Wyrmwood Gaming Company. And all of that brought me to Wyrmwood, which is the woodworking aspect of your question. Yeah. And I had zero woodworking skills walking into Wyrmwood. None. I've worked with my hands, I've done the fine arts schooling, so sculpting, mold making, drawing, painting, all of that stuff was there. I just never did wood.
Yeah, the element of like the aesthetic and the design you have, but it's a new material and a new way of working and making that come to life.
Exactly. So everything that I know about woodworking came from Wyrmwood.
That's actually great. Like that's such a cool thing. And I think I was talking to someone recently about how the jobs that we're in create so much experience for us, but I think there's just that sense in your mind that you're like, oh, well, to become a woodworker, you must be woodworking. But then how do you start? Like, how does one start doing that?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're looking for woodworkers. Okay, I'd like to do a thing. What's your experience? I don't have any. We need people with experience. How do I learn? Have fun.
Yeah.
But Wyrmwood wasn't like that. They actually, when I started, Doug and Ian told me, we prefer people that actually don't have skill sets. That way you're more receptive, you learn better, you don't have bad habits, or it's one of those things, it's like, here's how we do it. There's no combating.
We mold you into the kind of woodworker we need you to be.
Exactly. So, I went from doing milling processes, which is, like cutting slats and doing joinery, things like that, and then sending it off to, people in production, to actually doing production. And then 6 months after I started at Wyrmwood, I was in all the time, like off the clock, to learn more stuff and to try things on my own and all this other stuff. They were just kind of like watching me do this while I was, in and around, and it got noticed. And like I said, 6 months after I started, after the first Christmas that we went through, I started in custom shop. And then I learned most of the stuff that I learned about all the different products that Wyrmwood was making at the time. I learned on the hardest versions. Because, so for example, like the old school Hero Vault was this perfect square, it had space, cavity enough to put dice or, your 1-inch figurine.
Yeah.
And okay, cool.
Yeah.
I had never made one before, and I'm handed a slip and be like, hey, we need a masterwork out of Gabon ebony, which we had at the time, with silver stringing and veneers and this, that, and everything. And I'm like, great, I've never done this before. How do? And that's just kind of how I started learning. And every opportunity that came my way, I just jumped on top of, and I just siphoned it all in. You know, it was just a Bennett sponge. And here I am. So
I mean, I honestly think there's something to that. There's people learn in so many different ways, but to be there doing it, like thrown kind of into the deep end and having to be like, okay, I got to make the best version of this thing. I don't know how to do it, so I got to learn right now. There's something very there's something kind of thrilling in that. I found personally.
Sure. Yeah, it's a very make or break kind of attitude. And another thing working from Wyrmwood, which was great, is when like I did screw up or I did something not right, or you know, I got 3/4 of the way through a project and everything was wrong about it because of one wrong move early on. They were like, okay, well, now you know, here's how to avoid it, here's this, here's all this stuff. Yep, you fucked up, but let's keep moving forward. Just don't do it again, learn from it. You know, fail forward. That was their whole thing. Just fail hard, fail fast, fail forward. And I did, you know, I kept on pushing through, and the majority of my career was in custom shops, and they opened it for like, you know, for more off the clock work and more this other thing. So my personal projects started to get more intricate because my knowledge got more intricate, which means my practice and my knowledge got, you know, bigger and things like that. And this past year, you know, Wyrmwood bought the coffin vault design. It is now theirs. It is not mine anymore. It is now 100% theirs. And what the fuck do I say? Like, that was just, I didn't, that wasn't the goal. You know, I originally made the coffin vault to just make this small little batch, do a giveaway. I didn't even want to sell them. I didn't care. But they were like, no, no, we're going to sell these. And the first 13 disappeared in 2 minutes.
Wow.
You know, and they sold so fast that the computer system glitched and sold one of them twice. So I had to make a new one.
Oh, man.
To do the thing, and it got smashed into the Kickstarter at the time alongside Crystal Sully and her monster vaults, you know, 2 years ago. And those were just more doors that just opened.
And I know again this year with the Corrupted collection, the coffin vaults were kind of like the one of the the major piece of that.
The Masterwork Mausoleum was my new baby. And you know, to touch back on that whole hero vault thing that I was mentioning before, it's like I had to make that Masterwork version. It was one of the first that one vault was that first major project for Wyrmwood that I had to build and learn through doing. And to come all the way up till now to make a coffin version built in the same style, the same way, it's like my career went full circle. Like I went back to those roots, back to that defining moment, brought it up to now. And it's just kind of like, it's only been 4 years. 5 years, 4 or 5 years. That's it.
And for it to be like then your design and your thing that's coming back to your roots must be, I mean, there's something so special in that specifically. Like, this is how you, like, your Trial by Fire, you created your own version of that is so popular now that they were like, we must have this.
Right. Yeah. And it's inspired, you know, their design for the coffin tray and all sorts of things. But then, you know, Wyrmwood and everything I've done at work opened up, like I said, a lot of doors. Like Crystal Sully and I started talking, and talking with her and seeing all the stuff that she does, which is just phenomenal, and just getting to know her, you know, remotely. I haven't met her in person yet. It like reignited my love for creating, you know, and this was a couple of years ago, and I had been going through a real bad patch at the time. And then I got invited to play D&D with a couple of Wyrmwood people. And I'm like, okay, the campaign fell through, but I played it enough where I'm like, I didn't know how much I needed this into my life, and now I need it in my life.
Into my blood right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. So Wyrmwood opened doors up to get me back into my art, back into crafting, and now experiencing all these new things, all these new people. The amount of people that I've been able to interact with, meet with, collaborate with. Most recently, Randall Hampton, who's an artist, and I did a little bout in the Wisdom Save weekend that the Take This organization does. So what do? We make a monster.
Yes.
He drew it and I stat blocked it, and we talked about it and took in a lot of suggestions and ideas from the community at the time, like while raising money through the moderators, and it was so fun. And there's just so much that has come from just Wyrmwood.
Yeah.
And it's helped me be more me.
I love that.
And I couldn't be more happy because I do it all the time.
Yeah.
All of it. I live my job. I live my hobbies.
You truly.
That's it.
You are truly working a job that you love to do, and you've been able to make those creative aspirations that you had at the beginning into your vocation, and that's huge. Not everyone gets to do that.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's been great. And any of the projects that we kind of like talk about, moving forward, and like the hobbies and all that stuff, it all winds back to that little spiel. It has all come from that, and I love it.
And I think too, it's so interesting, you kind of amping yourself up to then talk to your dad about it, and how this idea of legacy, or kind of what our folks want for us, is built up so much in our minds and our hearts that it almost is worse than whatever their response to it is. I mean, not to say there are totally times when people are like, this is terrible, you can't do that, and then you have to fight back against it. But I know, even going to film school, telling my dad that I wanted to get my master's in film school, I was like, that's a stupid idea. Like, right. I was just like, I was to myself like, what a waste of time and money. And I remember having a conversation with him where I was just like, yeah, like I'm thinking of moving back out west, and like I'm not sure what I want to do. And he's like, oh, why don't you go to film school? And I was just like, oh, thank you, just give me permission. Like I know it's so dumb.
No, it was crazy. And like I said before, my dad's like my hero. He taught me everything, made me who I was, and enthusiastically supported anything that I wanted to do, especially when I was being creative. It was really hard to come to that because I just didn't want to disappoint him. Yeah. Like in the background, you can see that wood carving up there. Yeah. Like he made that.
Wow.
Like a lot of these crafty things and stuff I got from him, and not just taking it all from him. Like I showed my own interest in stuff, and then he kind of shared it with me, and then it just went. Yeah. So being able to do that, and now I said he was my biggest fan. Now he's like my biggest fan girl, because he's all about everything that I do. And he's so happy and he's so proud of it. And like, I tell him everything that's going on, and like, this is the new project I'm doing. This is the new monster I did. And this is what I'm doing now. And now I get paid to draw, like on, the side, Dad, and all this other stuff, because I just literally like making monsters. People apparently enjoy it. And he's so happy and he's so proud of it. And it's just, it makes looking back in that initial conversation and that initial fear, and sitting there going, why the fuck were you so worried?
But I think that there's something so funny too of which of our parents, and sometimes our parents are able to, like, we show an interest in something maybe they had kind of an interest in, or they'd never really thought that much about, but through you, they can now explore that interest in their own organic way. Like,
Right.
they're like, my dad is like, I'm writing a screenplay now. And I'm like, that's so awesome. Because he always wanted to write. His parents were always like, this is dumb, study math. And he was like, no, Dad, I'm going to be an English major. But, you know, he works at a bank and that's what he does. And he's not unhappy with that. But,
Sure.
you know, us doing what we do, I think is able to enable our parents to be like, well, I'm gonna participate in this in some way too. Like, I'm gonna have some fun. I want to be able to explore my creativity as well, because my child is doing it and they're so happy and they're succeeding in it. So like, why can't I just try it for fun for a while?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think there's something really lovely about that. So you have created so many cool, I was looking actually on your Instagram, your Chris Bennett is Phoenix.
Yes. Bennett is Chris Phoenix. Yeah, you got it.
Like, it's the order of the thing. And I'll obviously post your username and stuff down in the link below, because now this is for YouTube or something. But I was looking at some of the things you created. Awesome stuff, right? You've got like wands, and there's different furniture pieces and tokens. And one of the things that I was looking at that you were just like, I'm really excited about this, was a tack board. And I'd never heard of tack before. Tell me.
Oh, yeah. You're referring to my other Instagram, my Night Phoenix Wares.
Oh, shit.
Which is totally fun. No, that's totally fine. I have like 4 Instagrams. And it's kind of stupid. And until COVID hit, it was actually, it was helping my brain separate the multiple facets of my life.
Nope.
So like I call my normal Instagram my like social media junk drawer, because just everything goes in there.
Yeah, it's you.
Yeah, and then I've got like one that's just like me and my fitness journey, which with everything going on, has been very difficult, and I've kind of just not shoved a lot of attention there. Then you've got my Tales by Covalent Consortium, which is like this online narrative through Instagram that is showcasing some of my art, which is representing either my original ideas, a spin on a certain idea, or a collaborative idea made real. And then in the comments, I write a nice little blip in a narrative, and they follow like short arcs and things like that. And that's getting a reboot, without breaking canon, a reboot in January, and we're gonna get back into that. But so tack I had never heard of until I made that set. Yeah. Now that set I made a year or 2 ago for Wyrmwood. It was a custom piece, but Wyrmwood had done it as a Kickstarter. I believe it was a Kickstarter, but the game is from a book. And I'm lacking a lot of knowledge here, but the game's from a book. Can't recall what it is. Patrick Rothfuss was the author, I think. And I still don't know how to play the game.
I was watching videos of people playing it, and I was like, what the fuck?
I have no idea. And I have plenty of friends at Wyrmwood that will teach me, because I own a tack set.
Yeah.
One of the travel versions that we made, and I've been a part of making or made so many of them. But that specific one that you're referring to is a custom piece back when Wyrmwood was doing active custom projects.
Yeah.
So like a customer would be like, hey, I want to do a thing that you don't do. And we're going to be like, I will send you to Craftsman X, Y, or Z.
Yes.
And that board was just phenomenal to do, because I kind of did a little mixed media with the board face.
Yes.
Now, the original boards that we did were all wood tiles. Like all the different pieces were just all wood.
Yeah.
Now, the one that I did, all the little diamonds were inlaid turquoise.
Yeah.
And the pictures make it look like they're glowing. Like they're so pretty. And it was probably one of the most ambitious pieces that I had done up to that date. So anytime I like to showcase any like portfolio stuff, that is right in there.
Yeah.
Which now the coffin vault and the mausoleum will be too, and all this,
Yeah.
all that crazy stuff. But
Got a nice portfolio. It
so,
looks like it's from I just looked, it's the Wise Man's Fear tack is from. But I was actually, that was kind of what was interesting about it, because I imagine that working, and again, I know that at Wyrmwood there are also, you can get gemstone dice and stuff like that, but I imagine working with gemstones and rock related products, it's very different than working in wood, which I imagine, I know there's very hard woods and there's soft woods, but probably most woods are going to be softer than most gems.
So we actually don't work the dice ourselves.
Okay.
And any of the semi-precious stone or the material, the mineral inlays that we use, the way we work it currently is we get a crushed form, and we put the crushed form into whatever shape, or you call it a mortise, is a shape that is either laser engraved out or hand tooled out of the wood.
Yeah.
Fill it in that space. We use what's called thin CA glue, and it permeates all the stone and fills all the negative space, and then it solidifies, and we sand it flush, and then it, you've got that really nice stone polish inlay and stuff like that. So that's just one of those extra skills, and a little more of an advanced skill that a few people have been able to learn. And we do have like just a department for it that is, they just do inlays. So stuff comes over to laser, and right now I'm doing all the laser stuff. So I do all the laser stuff, send it all over to Paige over there in inlay land, and she gets to do all the inlays. And then it goes into the production, and they finish the vault or the piece, and it just goes from there. So
that's so crazy. This is me coming in, like, I like to do my research about what people are working on and stuff, but like I have no idea how any of that works. So I'm just like, just melting some gemstones into some stuff, sort of, kind of not. But to me, that's what I'm just like, oh yeah, melt that gemstone in there. So with the boxes right now for the giveaway that are like they've got the kind of floral inlays.
Yes.
Is that same technique then?
That is different. So that's called marquetry. I am not doing that, but one of our craftsmen, Liz, is pretty much the marquetry department right now. Yeah. She does all of that, and she's phenomenal at it. In case you can go to Wyrmwood's Instagram and look at the things and all that stuff. And we've Wyrmwood has done their Gaia vaults, which has always been like a flower and all that. And then those are actually hand cut. All the pieces are hand cut on a tiny little scroll saw. She sits there and she does the thing. Then the shading on the wood happens from a hot plate of sand, and you call it sand shading. You take the piece of wood, you stick it in the sand, and it burns in this like gradient, and you pull it out and you put all the pieces together. You put it in a piece there, and you sand it all, glue it on, and it's all this crazy stuff. And I'm dumbing it way down.
Obviously, this is the layman's version of what you guys are doing.
Sure. And then you get the final product, and you look at it, and it looks like a flower, and it's like, whoa. And most recently, she's like really shot for the stars, and taken a couple of my line art drawings for Wyrmwood themed weaponry for like D&D and stuff like that. And I took a bunch of elements off. If you look at the Wyrmwood logo, there's the tree in the shield.
Yeah.
And in the center of the tree, there's a negative space that is a sword.
Yes.
Right? So I looked at that, and I looked at the pommel, and it's kind of got like this spade shape. And I looked at the hilt, and it has this really drastic V to it and all that. So I took those two elements and the elegant fluting of the way the sword is, and I put them into all of the other weapons. So like the arrows, the sword, the axe,
Yeah.
the flange mace, like all of that. If you really look at it and you look at the sword, you can pick the little details and go, okay, cool. Everything carries
Well,
over.
it's from a like a collection almost. Like they all
Yeah, like a
have
theme
theme.
set.
Yeah.
So she took those and made the first one, which was the hammer, I'm pretty sure. And everybody was just like, okay, yeah, this is now gonna be a thing. So we're gonna do a set like this. We're gonna do a bludgeoning set, a piercing set, and a slashing set. So you guys figure out how you're gonna do it, just go. You know, we would have meetings back and forth with, you know, management and between each other and the product manager and all that other stuff. And it came down to all the stuff that's being posted. We actually had enough time that she was able to make 2 pencil sets with help from Michelle, our lead, our pencil druid. So the vault has a chisel with like a gem crystal cluster on the back for like artificer sort of stuff. So it was like a tool, magical tool, and then the next one was a staff of like all these winding bits with a chunk of crystal on the bottom. Inside each of those will be a Macassar ebony pencil, either a sketch pencil or a mechanical pencil. And our style at Wyrmwood for the wood turning is like there's this round bit, and it's called a bead in the profile of the pen. On these ones, they're special because that bead is a totally different kind of wood, and it matches the vaults, and you know, it goes from there. And being able to be like, okay, I drew these things, here, use them, and she knocked it out of the park. Like her work's phenomenal, and it looks so beautiful. And then the media team does such a great job with their photography and everything. It just made these sets look fantastic. They're amazing.
This is the I think the problematic collecting thing for so many D&D players and become like a dice goblin, right? It's just like I want them all. I want all of them. This is why I'm not allowed to, like, I take a certain amount of cash to cons and then I like leave everything else at home. I'm like, you can't fuck around today.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
I need a budget.
Yes.
Budget?
Exactly.
I need a budget.
Oh my gosh, that's so fucking funny. But no, everything, they're just, all the collections are so beautiful. And it's just been so fun. I've already ordered several of the Naughty Dice collections, because like, why, what, like, yeah, give me random fucking dice. And the first set that came in, I think I ordered 3 different sets, and I ordered actually I have it right here, it's my my D10, my rose quartz
Nice.
D10, which I like very much. I wanted a D20, but they're already out, obviously, because that would go very quickly. But the first set I got were like these bluish purple, and they had kind of a glittery sheen to it, and I'm just like, these are the best dice I've ever had in my life. Just I've been, I think in this past week I've gotten 6 sets of dice to my home, because then Critical Role released their like character collections, and I had to get my like Percy dice right away. I don't know, it's been a lot. That being said,
ready for a confession?
Yeah, tell me.
I've never watched Critical Role.
You know what?
I watched the first episode when they came back after quarantine and all that stuff. Yeah. I watched that with my roommate.
No, honestly, it's one of those things that like I only got into Critical Role. I was a late Critical Role person. I got into it over the quarantine, and I binged the entire thing in 3 months. Yeah, that's a lot of, yeah.
Wow.
I don't have a lot going on in my life right now. I mean, I got a job now, so it's, yeah. You know, most of the time being unemployed has been like making this show and watching Critical Role. But yeah, I don't want to get now I'm getting not sad. Now I won't go much deeper into that. But no. It's actually, it's kind of weird because you talk about Wyrmwood being this kind of hub that things came from. In a weird kind of minutia version of that, Critical Role sort of was that for me over this thing, because I ended up getting involved in the Booty Mashup community. So I don't know if you know anything about them, but like the series of DJs that do bootlegged mashups in different venues across the country and in Germany and different places. They used to throw parties in LA all the time. Now they can't, so they moved it all online. So I was like, okay, I'll hang out with that community because Matt and Marisha said, oh, it's really cool, you should come hang out. I met a bunch of people through that. Part of the reason I made this show was to interview all the cool creators who are like doing amazing things, who like, you know, didn't have an outlet to talk about it in a big way. And then I was able to just like, you know, I got another interview with the guy at D&D, like who was running the D&DJs thing. And through the D&DJs, I met like all these really cool DJs who like now are, you know, teaching me about certain, then I got into the voice acting side of stuff. And so like in that way, right, I've been able to make connections that are like then related to my job or writing or like getting back into D&D or DMing again, that are all these like lovely things in my life that kind of came from Critical Role in a weird way, but like also are completely unrelated to Critical Role. Anyway, that's my interruption of your interview to tell you about.
That's totally fine. That's why we're here, to talk about stuff.
Yeah. But speaking of D&D, I know that COVID also was great for me getting into D&D again because I needed an outlet. You said that you've just gotten into it this past year, which is so fucking cool. And you're already DMing your first campaign, which is exactly what I did right after I got into D&D, because you're just like, oh, but I must make it now. What's that been like for you? Because that, I mean,
yeah,
so you have all the best equipment too. You got your dice jails and everything.
So it started a year ago. It was just you've never played D&D, you would love it. Yeah. So, you know, I sat down and I said, fuck it. I tried. Yeah. And the first character I made was a Tiefling Warlock Hexblade.
Yeah.
Obviously. And then the second character, which I'm currently still playing, is a Dragonborn Eldritch Knight Fighter. Duh. So it started, you know, sitting down and starting to play this, and we got to like level 2, and then, you know, a couple people couldn't play anymore, and you know, it fizzled out.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Whatever. And then I started like really getting into like getting a couple of I didn't get anything. One of my friends, who is also on Worm Life, if anybody's ever watched it, Big Tony.
Yeah.
Now, Big Tony is one of my good buddies. Now, Big Tony bought me for Christmas one year, just because he's a generous soul, the alternative cover collector set of the PHB, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual.
Yeah.
And they're all Hydro 47. I think that's his art tag. All of his alternate art, and I loved that art. Like, it's just really good. I love the style. I love the style, and it's so creative, and it's just very iconic while also illustrated. It's just great. And I started reading and looking at it and going through all the stuff, and I just started drawing again, and then going, I drew a thing.
Yep.
Slap. Stat block. So, and that got me and a buddy of mine, John Savage, together. While we're working, we would just talk about like monster ideas and then what they would do, and then it turned into lore and story, and now we have this entire faction of monsters, and a villain that's based off of myself, and like all this other stuff that we were doing. We started making like holiday-based monsters, but not something you would immediately go to. Like when you think St. Patrick's Day, you don't think of a dragon with opal scales that turns things to gold when it's mad at you. You know, but the rainbows, the light, and the gold were the inspiration, not the green and the leprechauns and the obvious stuff. We took the concept flipped it upside down and did something, or attempted to do something less mainstream with
Just
it.
the coolest version of when you encounter a creature like that, you're like, fuck, oh my god, like that's so clever, or whatever. Like it hits so much harder than like, oh, it's some evil leprechauns or whatever.
Right. And one of my favorite, I think my first monster that I drew specifically for D&D and statted it myself without anybody collaborating, anybody help, aside from going, does this make sense? Is this a little too much? Was my Jack Beholder. Jack Beholder is this giant pumpkin jack-o'-lantern beholder. Like, that's what it is, you know? And then I go, hey, Tony, look what I did. And he goes, what have I done? No. And I go, oh, no, wait. I pull out a notebook, open it up, and show him the 3 pages of notes and 30 different ideas that I have lined up. And I'm like, no, this is what you did. He goes, oh, no. You know, what have I unleashed upon the world? And that's where it all started. And from there, it turned into, I've already mentioned it, the Tales by Covalent Consortium, that narrative, which is me and John Savage, you know, started going back and forth, like I had mentioned. And then we just started putting it to paper. And I did this little narrative thing. And our goal was to get like a whole bunch of stuff and then go, hey, community, here you go, you know, and that's slowly continuing to happen. And the more I started doing it, I started to post, you know, on Twitter and get more involved in the D&D community, or at least the Wyrmwood, the Wyrmling community. You know, I got to meet a couple of people at cons, one of which was Lucigen, who won one of my old coffin vaults that I had done originally. And on the post where he won it, another Wyrmling went, this couldn't have happened to a badder man. Like, better, but spelt incorrectly with an A instead of an E. Yeah. And I immediately jumped on that and created a Bennett monster. And there's a thread somewhere in the vaults of Twitter, is of the 3 of us, Liz, Lucigen, and myself, going back and forth about, hey, that's funny, here's what's going to happen. And then I went, I'm going to make a monster called the Batter Man, who is this uncooked cookie batter sludge monster. And
a terrifying version of the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Yeah, only worse. And then Liz is like, oh my God, what have I done? And then Lucigen goes, wait. I'm actually like working on like this one-shot thing. Now I'm gonna make it all cookie themed, and that sounds great. And then we started collaborating about, all because of a spelling mistake.
Yes.
Right? And actually that same project, he and I have reconnected to really hone in on it and make Roll20 assets.
Yep.
I actually created a mini, I made it, of the Batter Man. And we all got to meet at PAX East this past year.
Yeah.
And he DM'd the game that we came up with in a Twitter feed with myself and a couple of people from the Wyrmlings that, again, I got to meet and interact with, and it was hilarious, so much fun. Now we're working on it to try to share with everybody else, you know, for Christmas, because it was all Christmas cookie themed. You were gingerbread men. And it's crazy. So D&D and my immersion into it just flared my creativity, made so many more connections, which made me want to do it more.
Yeah.
And then this past year, with all of the art stuff, talking with Crystal Sully, meeting and talking with Randall Hampton, who invited me to a hangout art stream, you know, just hang out and do stuff online and whatever. He is kind of like a nice pushing force that got me into the streaming thing and got me into the community, like more into the community thing, and got me coloring. He got me coloring. I fucking hated coloring so much. I hated it. I hated it so much because I get all I get the lines all nice and inked
Looks
up and perfect and
clean.
great. And then I'm like, it's perfect. Done. And everyone's like, why don't you color it? I'm like, what? No. All right, fine. Well, I had started getting back into coloring and doing it digitally, and I was in a healthier space and all this other stuff. Randall got me online. And now he and I hang out once in a while and just talk about random bullshit while both of us are working on whatever and sharing it. Like, we're not interested in getting a ton of views or whatever. We're just there to do D&D or art stuff and just talk whatever, you know? That got me back into coloring, which got me back into learning and honing more art skills. And recently that culminated in a new D&D monster. Well, a colored version of a D&D monster Savage and I did last year called the Turducken.
Yeah, I saw him.
The Turducken Chimera. And my final version, when I colored it, just honestly, it surprised me, because the whole way, and if any artist out there will know exactly what I'm talking about, you're working through it and you're doing like flats and like you're getting layers in and all this other thing. You're like, this fucking looks like garbage. I hate it. Why isn't this done yet? This is, oh God, it's just so terrible. Just keep going. I just want to be done. Oh wow, this looks great. Like it just all of a sudden goes from garbage to damn.
Yeah.
I don't understand why that's a thing, but it always is with a lot of projects that I'm not really sure how it's going to come out. It's just that mentality is like, all right, cool, you know?
Yeah.
So D&D has been a ride. It's been an absolute ride. And not only the gaming, the other thing is, it's just been another one of those things that it was like, hey, D&D, it's a line, and now it's all these other things.
Well, I think that D&D kind of like working in film in general is such an interesting medium, because it is it's so many different types of creative people can come together and enjoy the same thing, and maybe not even just playing it, but just consuming, playing, watching D&D lore in any capacity. You can create art. If you love acting or voice acting, you can do that. If you love to like reenact medieval shit, you can do that. If you're really into sci-fi, you can do that. Like if you're a storyteller or you're a writer or you're somebody who just wants to create the world and monsters but doesn't want to narrate, like there's such a large community to be like, and again, that's part of what this booty mashup did. We all went there and they created like an offshoot Discord where people would be like, okay, I want to run Curse of Strahd. Who like wants to play Curse of Strahd? And people would be like, yes. Fuck yes. Like that's how I ended up getting into the two campaigns I'm in. Well, one's in D&D, one of them's Monster Hearts. Someone's just like, do you want to be a teenage supernatural creature trying to live their normal teenage life? I was like, yes. Fuck yes. And I was like, I know I'm either going to be a ghost or a witch, because I always pick that. So instead, I'm going to roll a d12 and I'm going to let the universe pick for me. And I ended up getting a Cerebus, which should be called a Hellhound, because Cerebus is one fucking thing, but that's fine. And I was like, I never, ever, ever would have chosen this for myself. But now I'm playing a character that I'm just like, wow, she's such a fucking mess. She just wants to protect everyone. She has no sense of self beyond that. And she wants to try and hunt down ghosts. Cool, great. And like, you can really just be full on with my other character. He's a Kalishtar bard. And I was just like, and the specific thing, this guy's homebrewing our campaign, and in his world, everything's kind of, the planes have split and kind of overlapped in a weird way, where like people have kind of a weird component about them. So like someone might be a tiefling, but they had like dragon ancestry. So like everyone's got kind of a like mixed sort of element there. So he's kind of also like he got these ghosts. I essentially was like, I want to make a character who doesn't know if he's dead or alive. And Ari's like, that sounds cool. And I was like, I don't care about it other than that. You decide. Which I never do, because I'm like the kind of person who's in D&D Beyond for like hours just making characters. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna like try something new and like hands off it. I'm just gonna make this dumb himbo in the woods. He's so stupid. His wisdom and intelligence I both rolled are like below 10. Like he's so stupid. But like is like, you know, I get a 11 modifier to persuasion and performance. So like I'm doing pretty well.
Right.
And then he's like, okay, here's your tragic, here's the horrible shit that's happening to you now. And I'm like, I don't know where this is coming from, but okay. Like you get to work with other people who can do things with you and make it so much cooler than you thought it was going to be. Like, what an amazing, like you were saying, like from a fucking typo, you have a whole new fucking character.
Yep.
And a monster. Yep. D&D is cool. Everybody who doesn't think D&D, I think it's becoming mainstream sort of now after like Stranger Things and stuff. But if you don't think D&D is cool, you're wrong. Sorry. Not to say that there aren't issues within stuff.
Sure.
There's always issues within everything.
But yeah, so in that whole mentality too, where a bunch of different people can come together and be creative, is illustrated every other week at my kitchen table, because this is the first campaign for D&D that I am actually DMing.
Yeah.
And the way that I'm doing it is I'm doing it kind of like a 50-50. Here's the book and here's my brain.
Nice.
Right? And all my stuff. So yeah. I'm half homebrew, half by the book, in the Eberron setting. Now, it's called Erebon, though, because for whatever reason, I couldn't say Eberron to save my life. I was just really tired one night, and I'm setting, and I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, we're going to go to Erebon, and I'm going to do this, and Eberron. Yeah, that. So it's Eberron. Shut up. Fuck it. It's just Erebon, and it's a parallel dimension, and it's mine. Shut your face. So that's just kind of where I took it. And now we've got a table with 4 veteran players and 1 brand new player. Never played D&D in his whole life. And a brand new DM, right? Super brand new. I mean, I'm brand new to just D&D, period.
Yeah.
But so this campaign was built and this table was picked for this new player specifically because he came to me and he goes, hey, you're creative and you do this and you do that. I want to learn how to play D&D and I already have this idea for this character. And I'm like, okay, hit me. And he just starts going off about his like character that's descended from a phoenix but doesn't know it and all this other stuff. And I went, stop. Bennett time. And we start going back and forth, and I just start throwing all these ideas that immediately just started coming to me because of this pitch line that he threw me. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna do all this crazy stuff. I'm gonna fucking start a campaign. You're gonna play. We're gonna make characters in like a week. And he goes, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, no, it's happening.
Yeah.
Then COVID hit. So it didn't happen until like after everything started turning into phase 3 and people came back to work and all this other stuff. And we were like, okay, we're going to be smart about it, but let's just play because there's too much bullshit, you know? So the party is now level 3. And they're in this setting. And I played it. Have you played Breath of the Wild yet?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how the first chunk of the game, you're on the plateau, and it's basically just a big tutorial?
Yes.
So in my campaign, levels 1 through 3 was just the plateau.
Nice.
Right? So it was a nice, slow introduction so everybody could get used to their characters, used to how I was going to run the game, and used to each other. And then shit hit the fan. Like a big old, it hit the fan was gone, right? So,
Ganon's arrived.
And I love the idea of a challenge. I like throwing difficult stuff at people. Apparently, I'm really bad at making good low-level monsters, but I'm great at making very good monsters. So I realized this, and we're playing and we're figuring out. And so we have a party. We have a druid who is a turtle. His name is Terry the Turtle. He is played by a Wyrmwood employee. His name is Carter. And the character is just so fun-loving, wants to make everybody happy. And Carter's hysterical. Like, he leans into this character a lot, and it's great. Then you have Gildis, who is played by one of my roommate's friends, Manny. And this Goliath is a cleric, but he is also claustrophobic, which I find a riot and a total.
Oh yeah.
You know, and he also has like he has this really troubled mind space right now because of his backstory and where he is, and he's only 19, so he's like, I don't like this. Like, he gets freaked out real easy, which is fine.
Yeah.
And then we've got Dave, my roommate. He plays a human rogue, and he makes mead. Like, he's from a family from the town that the game starts in. And he makes mead, and he's just this aloof, like, proper kid when stuff's going around, and then everything's gone, and he just rips the tie off and just starts partying. Like, he's just one of those kinds of characters, and he's awesome. You've got Big Tony, who's playing, and Big Tony's go-to was always like a paladin or something big to punch the thing, fight and all that stuff. He's playing a full spellcaster. Well, he's playing a spellcaster. He's a warlock, a celestial warlock. So he's a good
warlock.
The nicer warlock than most other. And he's a tiefling. And he's super paranoid about everyone because he's running from his demonic heritage. Like, we have his heritage is actually like a faction, like a family, trying to do whatever they're trying to do, and he betrayed them and stopped it all because he's like, this is all bullshit. I like this place. You guys are trying to fuck this place. Peace, I'm out. And he's on the run. And I realized that I'm like, not gonna change who I am when I make monsters. Yeah. So what I could do was change my party. Like, I could change my party members, and I could change their action economy. And I'm doing this by, I gave them all a familiar.
Nice.
And kind of like in not Stardust.
Oh no, I know what you're talking about.
What I'm talking about. So kind of like in that, in my head, I'm picturing that really like people who are going to be heroes, that are heroes, like in this world setting.
Yeah. At
some point, get a familiar. Mm-hmm. Now what I'm doing is I made this like mini little development sheet for all of their familiars, and they're each unique to them in some fashion. And this familiar grows alongside the characters. So their strength, their like attack damage, and their abilities and their things are parallel to the character's level overall. Yeah. First. And second, they get the player gains this homebrew action called a familiar action. And the familiar can either help the player or the player's character, or just, attack. Yeah. It's one of the two, keep it simple. But it gives the player enough agency and enough action economy to kind of handle the stuff that I'm throwing at them. Yeah. Better. Yeah. So I don't, total party kill them. I don't want that to happen because these characters are so good. No. But in the end, the dice tell the story. So.
Yeah. It's like, you can't decide a TPK, but like a good DM usually doesn't want to TPK their campaign.
So, yeah. So we've got all these characters, and then the new person is John. Now, John has a homebrew subrace of Aarakocra. Yeah. Which he's actually not a true Aarakocra. He's descended from a phoenix. He doesn't know that. He's one of several of his kind, but he's the last one. Again, doesn't know that. John knows that, but the character doesn't. Yeah. And he's an Eldritch Knight, and we're flavoring all the things that he learns to be towards that Phoenix feel. So a little more fire stuff, a little more, healy things, stuff like that. And he's loving it so far. So he's not actively role playing because he wasn't sure how to do it. He goes, do I have to role play through this? And I was like, honestly, John, no, you don't. You know how I started? I started just by acting like myself and responding to this name. Yeah. Like me in that situation with all these fantastical powers, what would I do? Yeah. And just go from there. And if you start getting more comfortable and all of a sudden you start growing an accent, fucking just do it. Like, whatever. No one here's going to judge you. And he was just like real nervous about it. But I picked this table specifically because Carter and Tony are super awesome, good friends of mine. My roommate Dave is like one of my best friends now too. Yeah. And he brought in a friend, which was Manny, who was also super receptive, totally chill. Like this whole table is just so chill and supportive.
Not dick people who are trying to do murder hobos everywhere.
It's so great that I get, as DM, to just lean back and just let them talk for like 45 minutes. But nothing it moves things forward. It develops the characters and their interactions. And I'm sitting there, writing stuff down, low profile, because if Tony sees me writing something down, Tony gets paranoid. He's like, what are you doing? What did you write down? What are you doing? And they're having a blast. I'm having a whole ton of fun. Like one of our sessions was, we did this thing that was just a skill challenge to move some stuff along. And then they just role played. Yeah. And their role play took them places to do and accomplish things, but I wasn't gonna ruin it by like trying to shove story down their throats. Yeah. And I'm like, this is too good. And it's only going to make whatever happens next even better. Yeah. So screw it. And I learned
DM intuition.
Yeah, I learned real fast to write bullet points of things I wanted to try to make happen. And whatever roadmap I was thinking about making, no, don't even be like, okay, somehow I want this as a writer and a storyteller. I want this and this to happen. This has to happen, and maybe this, and this. Yeah. And anytime I see an opportunity, I'm like, and a hook.
Yeah.
Oh, I got it. Yeah. So, and that's how I do it. And I don't have a lot of experience with how other people really do it. And whatever works. But so far, I'm just like, this is so great. Oh my God, what am I going to do next?
I think that's the thing. Is like there are lots of DMs who do things different ways. My first DM was my roommate at the time. I was part of like a 9-person campaign. They brought me in very reluctantly because they were like, okay, well, all the roommates are in and it's kind of rude if you're not. But it was delightful and it was wonderful, and he was very much a storyteller. And then there was a DM who was very much like, I'm going to try and kill you guys. Like, I love you, but like, I'm going to try and kill you. And then, having these different, the campaign, I'm running kind of a one-shot campaign with my 59-year-old father. It was one of those things where I was like, I just want to make a campaign so he can play D&D, because he only played D&D once. It was in college, and it was mean nerds who like killed him. Like, he was like, well, you're dead. You can't play anymore. Go sit in the corner. And he's like, back in the day when things were very like cut and dry rule wise. So I decided to run the great pudding feast, pudding tent. It's just like short, little delightful with my father, his younger brother. My father is if I'm remembering correctly, a gnome, a trans gnome, which he decided, with a little stick bug companion that if the stick bug bites you, it causes hallucinations. My uncle is a dwarf cleric who got really involved in a gnome god and now will only proselytize Garl Glittergold, and he'll like go around. But the thing that's so funny is my uncle can't remember the name of his own patron, so he's like, "Have you heard about Carl Glitterman?" And everyone will be like, "No, I haven't heard of that." My brother is an imp who lives in a tree who just talks like an old man. And my cousin is like a young tabaxi artificer. And it's almost straight RP with them. Like they have no conception of like the mechanics of it really. Like once in a while I'll be like, okay, you have to roll for this and like add this to it. But it's so, I don't know, like I don't want to, it's not condescending, but it's so cute watching these like guys, like these upper middle-aged guys who've never done this before, just be like, okay, so can I try to rob this bar? And I'm like, I mean, you can try. I don't know why you want to, but you can certainly try. But that's the thing. It's like, that's probably not how I would run a campaign if I were running a campaign for you or for my other D&D friends. Like there'd be more little structure to it and stuff like that. But a good DM knows their players and knows what they want to do and kind of lets them dictate the story a little bit, even though we've got some aces up our sleeves. That being said, I'm really enjoying not DMing right now because I need a break.
I'm a player weekly and a DM bi-weekly, and so far it actually is a really nice balance.
Yeah,
gives me plenty of time to prepare for myself, but then I've got the 0 responsibilities weekly, and
it's like they're still happening.
Yeah, still happening. Yeah.
We're getting to the end, Chris.
Sure.
I'm Bennett. I call you Chris. Your name's fucking Bennett. It's just because I saw it on the box right there. You should just
that's fine.
Bennett.
I should.
I'm shaming you for me forgetting your preferred name. I'm gonna ask you some very stupid questions before we wrap up. Are you cool with that?
That's fine.
Yeah, okay. So if cars didn't exist, how would you want to travel?
How would I want to travel? I mean, are we like realism or
we're in the real world, but cars don't exist.
Cars don't exist.
So within your options. But they can't be crazy.
I mean, realistically, if cars didn't exist and bikes did exist, I'd probably ride a bike everywhere.
Probably, I mean, maybe too, because I am very afraid of horses.
Actually, so am I. I've ridden horses before, but I'm also the kind of person that pets are too much responsibility. I've got enough that I got to do right now. So I'll go the mechanical horse route and just grab a 2-wheeler. I'll be all set.
Wise. What is something you shouldn't eat and why?
I try to eat everything.
You try and eat everything?
I try everything once.
Yeah.
And if it's of not my liking, I don't eat it, because food to me is both sustainable, but I want to enjoy it.
So you would eat like the forbidden gushers, which are dice with something in the middle?
I'd try it.
Cool. Great. What is your useless superpower? What is something that you're like, I have a superpower, but it's pretty useless?
Oh, wow. My superpower that is completely useless is I can absolutely fall asleep when I'm fully caffeinated.
That's a great one. If you were a vending machine, what would you sell?
Bad advice.
I like that. I kind of want to use it now. What's a favorite word or phrase that you know in another language?
Fermez la bouche.
What is it?
Shut your mouth in French. I think.
We the one that my mom would say to us all the time when we were growing up was "Er du gammel," which is Danish for are you crazy? Like, are you madman? Is the direct translation. "Er du gammel." Would you rather be covered in fur or scales?
Oh, that's unfair.
Why is it unfair?
Unfair because I iconically like wolves, but I'm a dragonborn and I love it.
Mm-hmm. So for you,
Probably fur, because I hate being cold, and anything with scales are usually cold-blooded. So no thanks.
you could just go in. That's true. You would have to be more reliant on like sun patches, where fur you'd be warm wherever you were. That's perfect. Well, first of all, thank you for being on. What I want to make sure we get to do before we end up is that you have a chance to plug anything that you're working on right now that like people should follow, people should check out. But also, if you know people who are independent artists, who are musicians, who are doing something cool that you're like, you should check these people out right now because they like need to be seen.
Sure. Yeah, I actually have that a little prepared.
Do it.
So for something that I'm working on right now that is tied to a person that I definitely want to share is they are called The Bounty Board. It is done and run by Nick Trepanier from work. He's a good friend of mine. This is an Instagram and an Etsy. And it is Nick takes a mini that he gets from somewhere. He paints it himself, and he creates a character based on this mini as a encounter villain or bad guy or something. He writes up the encounter, he writes up the stats, and he does all the thing. And I get to draw whatever mini he chooses in a wanted poster form.
That's so cool.
Then that wanted poster gets actual physical prints. He does like a legendary package where you get the one mini. If you buy this legendary package, you get the mini. You get all the documentation that goes with it physically and all that other stuff. And there's all kinds of other options and things like that. So he's got an Etsy and he's got an Instagram. You should follow it because he posts weekly. And on his story throughout the week, he does like a narrative every day to build up to this, this thing. So that's a whole lot of fun, and it's phenomenal. 5e compatible and all that. Then my Tales by Cavala Consortium will get rebooted in 2021. And that's just going to be a narrative, some art, some really cool, fun stuff. And that's just going to be, kind of what I'm doing. An artist that I would highly recommend, who I believe is taking commissions because it's the holiday season, is Randall Hampton. I've dropped his name a couple times. He Twitch streams, does a lot of really fun talk streams while arting. Sometimes we hang out and stream. He's very involved in the community. He also has published 2 books, and it's basically Dungeons and Dragons for kids. It gives them. He illustrates the whole thing and he makes it engaging for a younger crowd. And it's it's phenomenal. A crafter that I have just gotten a custom set of dice from. Yes, I said dice, you goblins. Space Kitty Dice. You can find on Twitter and has, I think she has an Etsy. So I'm going to drop Heather Hood's name. That's she's one of the crafters behind that. Her craftsmanship so far I've seen is phenomenal, and I can't wait for the set of dice that I got from her for a gift for someone else. And then a small business locally is Charisma 20 Soap. It is handmade, Dungeons and Dragons inspired body care, which is run by John Savage and his family out of his home. And I use his product. It's phenomenal, and the scents are fantastic, and they're great people. Any of the artists and crafts people that I've mentioned are all phenomenal. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's so awesome. Those are all great people to look out for, and I'll make sure when this goes up, you can check out down below and links to all of their Etsy or Instagrams, which is so cool. And we'll end off with our kind of, December question, which I've been asking everybody, which is, what do you have a favorite memory that's either a wintry memory or a holiday memory that like you kind of hold close this time of year?
Not really. Holidays for me have been pretty tough growing up. But I think the highlight of my life is now doing stuff for my nephew.
Yeah.
So he's 4 years old, and for the last 4 years, for his birthday or for Christmas, he has gotten handmade wooden toys from Uncle Chris. From a choo-choo train to a aircraft carrier complete with a little helicopter and jet plane to blocks that he uses every day and all of that stuff. And this year I'm making him you don't have to bleep this out. They don't he won't watch anything like this. But this year I'm making him a snow globe with a mini that I will be painting of his D&D character called Ryan the Righteous. He's he's statistically or stats wise, he's a level 20 fighter. And all of that stuff comes from his family's gifts. So his armor and his sword and all the things that he has, all given to him by his family to make sure he's protected. And he rides a miniature Tyrannosaurus Rex that turns into a puppy when he goes into town to not scare people. That was his idea.
So cute.
So I made a mini from Hero Forge, and I got it all squared away, and I've got a set of dice in the bottom, and I glued it all together and made this really nice face. I do a snow globe for him, and all the artwork that I did of his character, I'm going to print and frame, things like that.
That's genuinely the cutest thing I've ever heard.
Speaking of projects and the Christmas time, is one really cool thing that'll be happening starting December 14th. Whether that's before or after we air. I will be doing the 13 days of Crimix. Christmas-themed mimics. I will release one a day until Christmas Day. And keep an eye on that too, because at the end of 12 Days of Crimix, that cookie one-shot that I was telling you about, actually after this interview in about 15 minutes, Lucigin and I will be getting together online to go over the final look over of the online assets, and we'll be releasing it for everyone and giving away a physical version of it on Christmas Day.
Oh,
so
nice.
Keep an eye out for the Crimix days, because we will release how to on one of those days, who knows when, and just more fun stuff, and that will all be happening on Twitter.
Okay, perfect. Well, we're gonna make sure this gets out soon then, so everyone can enjoy the Crimix. This is so much, Bennett. Thank you so much for coming on today and talking to me.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
It's just delightful. Thank you guys, everyone who tuned in. I know they're a little bit different format now, but I appreciate it so much. And as I always say, keep making cool art, keep participating in cool art, keep supporting cool art, and find those moments of joy where you can right now, because things are a little weird. Sometimes it's hard to find them for very long, but they can mean so much if you, just hold on to them and participate in it while it's in the present. So thank you guys. Have a nice rest of your week, and see you around.